Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining Asian Philosophies. And today we will continue on the Taoist reading on the Zhuangzi's inner chapter, and today is the last chapter. So that's our schedule, and then I have been taking break for a while, probably 2 months, and then right now I'm going to restart, and then we will continue to finish inner chapter. Today is the last chapter. So, Fred?
I see you have here a history of Chinese philosophy.
Yeah.
Some previous meetings, we had excerpts from a book, A Short History of Chinese Philosophy. Is that the same book or is this different?
Okay, yeah, I will talk about this in 1 minute. So thank you for asking. And then just 1 minute. So yes, today we are talking about Zhuangzi's writing, and the interpreter or translator is Fung You Lan. And just like Fred talked about, Fung You, we read a short history of Chinese philosophy for 1.5 years, and then we go through from the Confucius, before Confucius' time, which is 2,500 years before, and all the way through the early 20th century. That's his book covered. And when we finish this one, and I start to read Fung You Lan's another book, which is translation and the interpretation of Zhuangzi, the inner chapter, which has 7 in total. And today is supposed to be the chapter 7, the last chapter of the inner section. And then next week, we will talk about, we will switch to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, which is Divine Glory. SK, Sasha will be here to talk about that. Then the week after, I will try to finish Fung You Lan's Zhuangzi, and he has a good introduction. He lists 10 points, so-called general viewpoint and the significance of Taoism. He lists the 10 significant essence of Zhuangzi's inner chapter. I think that serves a very good, not only introduction, probably better to consider as a summarize of the Zhuangzi's philosophy in total. So that's what we are going to do. Just back to Fred's question about the history of the Chinese philosophy. This one is also written by Fung You Lan. Okay, so the book I introduced 2 years ago is A Short History of Fung You Lan. Okay, so short, I think he meant concise or brief. Okay, the history is still the same. That's 2,500 years. So he originally, Fung You Lan, wrote a book called A History of Chinese Philosophy, which has 2 volumes. And I think probably I have the book, probably about like 1,000. It's a big book, if you can see. That's just volume 2. They have another volume 1. So that's his original writing. And I went through that one. I find out actually he has a lot of great idea, and he probably been underestimated by today's philosopher, or especially in the Oriental philosophy field. I think because the political reason, he is favor China and get close with Chairman Mao. So on the part of Taiwan has been ignored him. And he doesn't get along with Hu Shi, another great philosopher. So he was ignored by the Taiwan side. And then he also not being appraised on the Chinese side traditionally, because he probably too traditional. So for this reason, that's my personal opinion, probably he been unknown for most of the young generation. Okay, so I read the short history. I find out that's a pretty good one. I was planning to repeat that one, but I find out that probably the best way is to repeat the original version, which include more information and more in-depth, and his own in-depth opinion from him. But I don't want to go to too academic. So in this way, I probably will provide my own summary. So we'll make the reading much easier. That's my plan. So when we finish Zhuangzi, that's what I'm going to do. So I hope I explained clearly. And then if anyone have any question about our schedule and the plan. Okay. So method is here. So let's start from the today's subject. Okay, so just quickly go through. Okay, that's the book I ask everyone to read, and if you read from 1 to 7, that'd be great. And I find out this book is a wonderful book. Okay, and I think probably better than the original Chinese version, because Chinese version, the language is very difficult. At least to me, it's very difficult. English version helped me understand a lot in depth. So I really like his interpretation, and he read it in English, which helped a lot. So we have been through 6 chapters, and today we will go to the last chapter. I hope I can finish chapter 7 today, but as usual, sometimes it takes longer, and then I may have to make a second session for the chapter 7, because I don't want rush and ignore some of questions or some concern. So just give a brief overview on this one, and then 7 chapter. And Zhuangzi is a lot of he has this book, Zhuangzi, as a person. Okay, he lived about on this time about the 4th or 3rd century BCE. Okay, so people call him Zhuang Zhou or Zhuangzi. But here, when I say Zhuangzi, I mean the inner chapter, the book. The book has 33 chapters, and it's called the inner chapter from 1 to 7. Outer chapter usually considered as his student, his disciples writing. And the miscellaneous chapters, they have another 10 chapters, which must be the people much later, probably on the 1st century, on the about Han Dynasty. Some people start to write something. So usually, we consider from 1 to 7 as Zhuangzi, this person's philosophy. And you can see it's a very comprehensive philosophy. Okay, from 1 to 7, I think next time we will go through kind of summary for this 7 chapter. So today we will go to the chapter 7, which the translator Fung You Lan Fung You Lan, okay, is the translator, and he lived on the early 20th century. Okay, so he was educated in, I think, in Columbia University, and studied from Jiangdui. And when he ended with a strong Chinese literature language background, and so he made a good translation. Today we are reading his translation. So that's the book. So through the history, I make a list of the 7 chapters, and we have to go through from 1 to, today we're going to 7. And if you take a look, all this name, okay, so that's my summary. I think you will see this 7 chapter probably represent a very comprehensive philosophy. Okay. So chapter 1 talk about happy excursion. Basically, he's talking about freedom. He tried to tell us everyone can be free, okay, physically or mentally. Chapter 2 is on equality of things. Basically, is his metaphysic argument. talking about everything is equal. Language talking about the truth, what's false, what's real, what's illusion, what's being, what's non-being. That's his art. This one is very long and very difficult to read. Chapter 3, he started to talk about how do we live as individual, talk about self, how to take care of yourself. Chapter 4, he started to talk about this society, the human world, because you don't live alone, how to deal with other people. Chapter 5, talk about his virtue. As a philosopher, you need to talk about the virtue. What does he mean? Perfect or innate character, and what does he mean? Virtue. Number 6 is talking about kind of more like a religion, the topic of religion, a little bit mysticism, talk about death, talk about immortality. Okay, he doesn't talk about soul because Chinese concept doesn't have the Western concept of soul, but he talk about immortality, talk about death. So chapter 6, we introduced probably 2 months ago. It's a lot of religious flavor. And some people will find that it's difficult to read, difficult to understand. Even myself, I also find out a little bit difficult. So today we talk about chapter 7, which is complete. The last one, which is talk about politics, which all Chinese philosophy during that time, the purpose is politics, how to resolve this problem, the society problem. So just like all other philosophies, like Confucius or Lao Tzu during the time, they all talk about politics. So today we are going to talk about is the politics. So if you look at this 7, you will see the basic is a complete, a comprehensive philosophy. It touches every area of philosophy, even we based on the Western philosophy point of view. It's very comprehensive. So I will put a short stop here, and if you have any question, comment, and before I really go to the chapter 7. Before we start, if you have any question or any comment you want to make. Okay, I think I will post the data. If you go to the meetup page, I usually post the PDF file as my PowerPoint file. And I feel very proud of each chapter. I make an outline on this one, on each chapter, chapter 2. Okay, try to organize on each one. And you don't have to write down, but if you are interested, you can go to our meetup page. Each chapter, I provide outline. And I believe nobody doing this. At least I create this outlines. Okay, and then I think this outline at least help me understand the philosophy much better. And I don't see any book in Chinese or English have this kind of outline. Usually they just put a long story on each chapter, and it's very difficult to read. And with my breakdown with outlines, I think everything becomes easy. So if anyone have read anything about each chapter have outline, please let me know. I would like to see how other people, other scholar or reader break down on each chapter. So that's I feel I'm very proud to create this one. So today, before we go to chapter 7, I would like to break down this chapter 7 in 7 different so-called paragraphs or 7 different stories. Basics, they from 1 to 4. It's 4 very short stories. Okay, only 1 page. Okay, very short story. And number 5 is a little bit long story. Okay? And this long story talking about a person called Liez. This person show up in chapter 1. And the Liez has been considered as a Taoist immortals. So this one is also talking about fortune telling, basically talk about physiognomy. Okay, so it's a little bit strange, but it's an interesting story, a little bit long. Then number 6, it's a motto or so-called maxim about Wu Wei. Okay. If you're familiar with Dao De Jing, another Taoist writing, the key concept is Wu Wei. And if you remember or you go through from chapter 1 to chapter 6 in Zhuangzi, you probably don't see much about Wu Wei because Wu Wei is more politics than personal idea. So since this one is politics, so number 6 basics is kind of like summarize what Lao Tzu or Dao De Jing teach about Wu Wei, and also summarize the overall view of Zhuangzi's political concept. So surprisingly, to the end, Zhuangzi writes another short story, okay, so-called the death of the primitivities. Some people, including me, feel a little bit strange, okay, use this one as ending. But some, or probably most scholar people will consider this one is a great ending. And I discussed this one with Pin, and he liked this one. And I think this one is a little bit strange to me. Okay. But I will present as what Zhuangzi is writing, and then you can tell me whether or not this short story fit to this essay or not. So I will stop here, and if you have any question before I go through. So the title is called Philosopher-King. That's Fung You Lan's translation. And if you go to the Chinese word, so-called 应帝王, see this one, 应帝王, okay. Technically, we should translate as the norm for the ruler. Basics is tell you what ideal king need to be. Okay, so I think that's the original meaning. So in this way, if you translate as philosopher-king in this way, in one way it's correct because it's similar idea as Plato talking about the ideal king, which he talk about when philosopher become a king. That's the idea. So, but it's all in another way also misleading because Plato's philosophy is totally, political philosophy is totally opposite or different to Zhuangzi's philosophy. So in this sense, it's confusing. So I would suggest everyone just remember here it's talking about the ideal king, ideal Taoist king, and it has nothing to do with Platonic philosophy. So before I go through this one, I think Fung You Lan, I'm going to read this part. I think Fung You Lan make a very good summary for the not only this chapter, the entire Zhuangzi's inner chapter, 7 chapter. So he talked about the first chapter describe the state of absolute freedom. That's the happy excursion. That's Zhuangzi's the first chapter. The second, he talking about the state of absolute equality. That's the Zhuangzi, the second chapter on the equality of state. Zhuangzi, he who attains this state can cultivate his own life. This one is chapter 3, the so-called the fundamental for cultivation of life, and live with others in the human world. So that's chapter 4 talking about. His virtue is complete. Okay, this one he talk about chapter 5. With it naturally influence the people. He thus become the great teacher. Okay, so this one is chapter 6 talking about great teacher. Okay, and then the great teacher should also be king. Political greatness should be the crown of wisdom. This wisdom is Taoist wisdom, not Confucian wisdom, not Platonic wisdom. Philosophy should be sagely in principle and keenly in practice. So here he did Fung You Lan tie from chapter 1 to chapter 7 together. So the idea is talking about in the mind is free, in the world should be equal, and then step by step cultivate yourself, live in this world, and cultivate your own virtue and become a great teacher. Eventually, the ruler, that's the way a ruler should rule the world or the state. So that's the idea of Zhuangzi's work. So before we go to the first story, okay, short story, we come with 4 short stories. So I will stop here, and any comment or question? Clint, please.
Okay, and you mentioned Plato views on politics as compared to the Taoist views, and that they have almost nothing in common. And I was wondering if Plato's views may be more aligned with the Confucius views on politics rather than the Taoist views.
Thank you. Thank you for this question. Okay, so yes. Okay, it's not. Okay, so let me put this way. I would say Confucius, but Plato's in his Republic, I think it's in book 7. Okay, he started to talk about Philosopher-King, and then his idea. If you take it, some people read the Republic as a state of mind and talk about Plato's idea. Another name of Plato's Republic is on justice. So Plato probably want to talk about justice, but let's assume Plato is talking about politics. So his Philosopher-King is a king. The state is well controlled. You have the 3 there. They have the producer, they have the guardian, and they have the Philosopher-King. Okay, so it all match to different virtue. With the king match to the wisdom, the guardian match to the bravery, and then the producer will match to the temperance, right? That's 3, and the overall together become justice. That's Plato's great idea on this one. So you can see if you take Plato's Republic as a political essay, his idea of Philosopher-King is kind of like the best person live with a well-controlled society. Okay, everyone do that. Confucius would be similar to Plato, but not the same in the way we will say opposite. Confucius only focus on everybody's role. Okay, and the Confucius less interest in the wisdom for the ruler or the Philosopher-King, so-called, and Confucius like to call the Philosopher-King sage king. And the sage king basically he has to do is cultivate himself. The king himself is the role model for the entire world. So in Confucius' point of view, if the king himself achieve the moral extreme, everybody will follow, because in this way, his minister will have high moral standard, and that everybody will have high moral standard. So this world will be peaceful. Taoism, we will see later, that will totally different than this situation. Even we can call them sage king or Philosopher-King, they will be different. They basics talk about 无为 non-action, leave everything as is. This interference. I think that's the general concept if you want to put the Plato, Confucius, and the Taoist. So that's my answer. Clint, you continue, please.
Yes, just one more comment. Thank you very much for answering this question. To myself, this is how, and correct me if I'm wrong there in my way of thinking, but this is how I would very roughly compare Plato's ideas to Confucius, where I would see similarities. That would be in terms of the both ideas, and I'm not that much familiar with either Plato or Confucius, but just reading generally about the two types of philosophies, it would seem to me that the emphasis in both would be in the hierarchy, in sort of like hierarchical structure, which is probably, there is less of that in Taoism, I think, or maybe it's understood differently. But sort of like hierarchy in terms of even the social hierarchy, I think it would be more dominant in both philosophies, in Plato and in Confucius. But where I would see a difference, like major difference, I would say that the philosophy of Confucius would be more based on ritual, like the observance of ritual and the role that the ritual would play, and certain understanding of the ritual, versus I'm not sure if Plato would necessarily address that part that deeply as the Confucius philosophy would.
Thank you, Clint. I think you are right. At least I agree with you. And then, but one thing I would like to mention is in Taoism in this point of view, you will see Confucius and Plato will have a lot of similarity, but Taoism probably is the opposite. But again, about the social hierarchy, Taoism philosopher, they focus on the social hierarchy. But again, they are not anarchy, okay? And they don't support anarchy. They still, in their idea, they still have a king, still have a ruler. They just want to say, how does the ruler rule, okay, the state? So in this way, they still have a social hierarchy, but the hierarchy is not that rigid. And then that's the way. And that's the subject we want to discuss more detail in today's session. So any comment, question? Thank you, Clint, for the great comment and question. So first one, okay, let's talk about Taoist sage king. That's the first story, only one page. Okay, so Zhuangzi always comes with a lot of people with a different name. So Nie Que, that's the person, interview Wang Ni, and here he's talking about chapter 2. You can go back to chapter 2. Okay, Nie Que and Wang Ni, they have a discussion, ask question about how do you know what you don't know? How do you, if something you don't know, how do you know you don't know? He asked 4 questions, epistemological question. But Wang Ni answered none of that. So Nie Que was happy because he questioned Wang Ni, okay, about this thing, and there's no answer on that. So he did and went to told Pu Yizi. Okay, let's say Pu Yizi is another let's say Taoist master. So Nie Que asked Pu Yizi because he asked Wang Ni, he didn't get the answer. So he asked Pu Yizi, the other person. Did you not know this before? Okay, Pu Yizi told him the Emperor Sun. Sun is Confucian sage king. Was not equal to, basically he means not as good as Emperor Tai. Emperor Tai is another legendary Taoist sage king. So right now they are comparing Confucian sage king Sun and Taoist sage king type. So Sun still keep benevolence, which is learn to oblige people. He did win them. Okay, so right now he talked about Sun, just like a discussion between Klim and me, talking about the what Confucian sage king doing. He used benevolence, which we can consider Ren is the virtue, to oblige the people, and he can win them, win the people. But in his mind, there is still distinction between what was meant and what was not, and he never rose above the distinction. Emperor Tai here is the Taoist sage king, will sleep in tranquility and awake in contented simplicity. At one time, he will think himself a horse, and another an ox. He acknowledged was true. His knowledge was true. His virtue genuine, and he never sank into distinction of what was man and what was not. So that's the end of the story. His answer is this. He is criticizing. He doesn't really criticize it in Confucian sage king. Basically, he's talking about Confucian sage king, like Sun, considers perfect. It's still not good enough because he imposed the virtue to the people. And then you have the distinction. Here he talks about distinction between man and not man. Another way to look at it, he treat people differently. Okay, so that's the one cause problem. You should be like Taoist sage king, which will not looking at people and the animal different. So he can treat everyone equally. Let them do what they want to do. In this way, the sage king doesn't have to do anything. So he just do his job, sit his place, okay, and make everything simple, and this world will be in peace. I think that's his idea on this one. So I will bring a small reference to the Confucius Analect, which in book 15, okay, Confucius talk about this. He talk about, that's Confucius writing. He also talk about the sage king Su. That's the Analect. The master said, the sage king Sun is the one who can govern with Wu Wei. He talk about non-action. How did he do it? He simply made himself respectable and sat on the throne. It sounds like Confucius and the Taoism has same idea doing Wu Wei. They don't have to do anything. But the big difference here is in Confucius' point of view, an ideal ruler, he doesn't have to do things because he already has the virtue to himself and have the virtue to all the people. In Taoism point of view, a sage king or a philosopher-king, which he doesn't have to do anything because he has to do is just be in that position, let everyone do what they want to do. You don't have to impose the moral standard because they know, people know what to do. That's the ideal difference between Taoism and Confucianism. So that's the first story. And then, any comment, question? Krim, please.
Okay, it just something that came to mind between these two different styles. You know, once in college, I took this class called organizational behavior, and they talked about like different types of management, and one of them, which was regarded as the best type of management, was called a participative management, which is sort of reminds me the Taoist approach, where the manager would listen, basically would state the objective, and then would just sit and listen to the people basically would not prevent people from reaching the objective, would not act show by example, right? Versus the other type of management, one of the others, was actually lead by example, where the manager basically says, this is, look at me, I'm showing you the right way of doing things, because I have all this knowledge, and I'm better than anyone here in the group. So that's sort of, to me, that it triggered that analogy from just a course from college. I think it probably has some validity to this discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with you, because that's the way I look at it in the management style, right? So one kind of manager is he himself is the best. So all the people look up at him and try to follow him, use him as a model, or she as a model. Another way is the manager is play dumb. Okay, I don't know anything. Everything happened. You just ask your people, oh, what do you think? What do you think? What we can do? And then say, great, good idea. Go ahead to do it. I support you. That's another way to do it. So the former is Confucian, and the later is the Taoist. So I think that's a simple way, a simple modern interpretation for this. Thank you, Clint, for this idea. So Fred just put a comment on lead from behind, lead from front. So that's another way to look at it. Yeah, thank you, Fred. Comment before I move to the second story. The story is short, so except the fifth story. Okay, second story. Okay, I think the story layout pretty good. It's a step by step to get so-called lead into a Wu Wei, the final concept. Okay. Again, many different names. So when we read it, you probably will get confused about the name, and then each name have their meaning. But here I'm not going to put too much effort on that. So here talk about Jian Wu went to see the so-called crazy guy or eccentric guy, Jie Yu. Okay. Jie Yu is this person. Jie Yu is a person. We are not sure it's a real person, but at least it show up in Zhuangzi in chapter 4. I talk about Jie Yu. They have the son, the oath of Phoenix, and the same song, the same story also show up in Confucius Analect, book 18. Okay, also talk about this guy, Jie Yu. So it could be a real person, okay, a Taoist person, Taoist celebrity. That's why so many people mention. So, but anyway, we just consider this one. The later, Jie Yu asked, what did Zhong? Okay, he is the teacher of Jian Wu. Okay, Jian Wu, the person. Okay, tell you some time ago. Okay, so let's make it clear of this role. Okay, so Jian Wu is represent Confucian here, and then Jie Yu, the second person, represent the Taoist. So right now it's a Confucian teacher. He told me, the ruler that the ruler should set himself as an example, just like a claim said. Okay, set himself as an example, and regulate men with law and measures. In such a case, none will venture to disobey and refuse to be transformed. So everyone in his position, and everyone will follow the rule. That's just like one kind of management, or you can lead in front. You set yourself as an example for everyone. Confucian thinking. Okay, so Jie Yu, which represent a Taoist philosopher, his answer is shocking. He said, they will spoil your virtue. Okay, so this way actually is not virtue, not a virtuous ruling. It's spoiled virtue self. When the ruler tries to get the world in order in this way, he is wading through the sea, hearing passage through a river, or making the mosquito. So all this one I will explain later. Okay, he talk about is unnecessary. Okay, he used this example to talk about Confucian way of management is first unnecessary. He talk about during the passage through a river. In the Chinese word, basic 涉海凿河. Basic, he's talking about you try to build a canal through the ocean, which is unnecessary. Or you making a mosquito to carry a mountain, which or is impossible. He said Confucius' way is either impossible or unnecessary. That's the problem. When the sage set the world in order, they have no concern with what is outside the human nature. They let everyone follow his own proper nature and go at that. Every man does what he really can do. That is all. So, Jie Yu, the Taoist philosopher, is talking about Confucius' way is totally unnecessary and impossible. Even it's necessary, it's impossible. He provided the Taoist way to lead it, so-called leading from behind. So let everyone have nature and everyone do what he really can do. Then he gives us some two examples. First, he talk about the birds can fly high to avoid the people from shooting, right? From people shooting it. The mouse will dig very deep under the ground to avoid the other animal to eat him. So the situation is you don't have to teach the birds to fly high or have the mouse to dig very deep under the earth. They know what to do, and you, according to their nature, you don't have to set one way for them to behave. They know what to do according to their own nature. So that's Taoism's teaching on this way, and try to compare with Confucian teaching. So that's the second story, which Clint already talked about in the first story. Comment and the question? Great, we talk about management. Clint, please.
Yeah, I think I had this one thought on actually I just had it, and I think I lost the train of thought. I'll probably write it in the comment when it comes back to me.
Okay.
But something that speaks to that particular pair. Oh, actually, yes, it came back to me. So the idea is, I think we should go back to
Number one.
well, no. We should go back to the idea of what the government is for, right? Because I think the Taoist perspective is trying to answer or to it positions itself from trying to answer this question: what are we governing, right? What are we ruling? What is this for? Because if we are, let's say if we assume the Confucianist point of view, then we have this perfect model that we're trying to implement, and that creates maybe unnecessary burden and tension, and maybe loss of efficiency and so on. So it's about imposing something, right? There's a perfect idea of a perfect, sort of like a Plato idea in a way of a perfection, versus, and then the Taoist perspective may object to that and say, hey, why are we even governing? What is the end? What is the purpose? Well, the purpose is to make everybody happy. And then, how do you make everybody happy? Well, you just allow, to the best extent possible, you allow people to follow their nature. So you enable everyone to develop in the way in which they're born, they're programmed to, right? So then the latter, the Taoist perspective, basically it tries to stress, it's stressing the purpose, what are we trying to create this beauty that's costly, and it's a great image, great perfect idea, which is splendid, but costly, versus are we just trying to to be common sense and make kind of balance, make peace and preserve balance and allow everyone to develop according to their abilities. So I think that's I would answer that question by leading back to what's the purpose. And I think the purpose may be different for the two philosophies that have a different purpose for
Yeah,
the idea that, like, the original idea of what the rulership should be for.
yeah, thank you very much, because that's exactly the next story, the chapter 3. The third story is going to talk about what's the purpose, right? Why we are governed, and we talking about making people happy. Okay, so we will talk about this in the next slide. Let's go to DLJ. Yeah, please.
Okay, I think you've just answered the question probably in that case, or chapter 3. Well, yeah, I was thinking the same. What's the point of ruling if you're just going to let things, whatever, man? I mean, this is fine. Okay, the water flows downhill, right? So, great, get people in the right roles, essentially is what you're saying. But what if you want to build an irrigation system, or an aqueduct, right? You've got to channel people. It's not going far enough in terms of the ruling, which is, I think, really what Kim was saying. So I'll shut up because you're about to tell us, aren't you?
So, dear James, so to answer your question, or same as Kim's question, what's the purpose of the ruling? Okay, so that's a good question here. In Plato, probably think about achieve high virtue, but if we look at the Chinese time, during that time, it's the warring state. They see this world. Okay, they have a lot of wars. Okay, the state, there is a little bit historical background. During that time, they have I don't know, hundreds, thousands of states. They are fighting each other. Okay, and they all Chinese, just like the Greek world, right? They all Greek, but this little state. But Chinese time during that time is terrible. So the purpose of ruling is they are not saying just ruling my state. They are talking about ruling the entire world, which is entire China. And the only goal they want is peace. They want to go back to old time, which is peaceful. That's what they believe. So I think if you ask what's the purpose of ruling, is make this world peaceful. And the question is how. Confucius and the Taoist have a different answer. Confucius' answer would be the ruler should have a high virtual standard. And the Taoist answer is no. You just stop interfering all this detailed stuff. Okay, you just let people do what they want to do. Then the world will restore to its natural state, which is peaceful. You may agree or you may disagree, but that's the two different schools of main concept. Madeline, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so two thoughts on all this. One is that allowing people to do things in their most natural state brings us right to the other discussions in Chinese philosophy of whether human beings are fundamentally good or fundamentally bad. And then the ways to rule follow from that. There were different schools of thought on that. My impression of the Philosopher-King is that he's someone who is so in tune with the ways of heaven that everything that he does is part of the mandate of heaven and works to bring a better pattern into being. And so his Wu Wei has to do more with influencing the larger pattern than getting a tighter grip of telling people what to do.
Thank you, Madeline. Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned about human nature, good or bad. let me make a good, a simple summary on this one, right? Confucius doesn't think about human nature, good or bad. He just said the ruler should be high virtue, good standard, high standard. Because during Confucius' time, he still has a hope, okay? This world, this chaotic world will go back to the good situation, which is the natural state, okay? The society will be good. He still have hope. 200 years later, during the Mencius time, and the Xunzi, another Confucian scholar, point of time. That time is a worrying state. Probably nobody believe we can go back to the good days in the 500 years before. They still think we need somebody to govern this world and make this world peaceful. So in this case, people develop two ideas. Mencius will say, human nature is good, so you have to develop your virtue. Basically, he's talking to the ruler. Okay, you have to believe human nature is good. You give them food, everything necessary. Okay, they will develop their own good nature, and the world will be fine, and you can govern your state well. Xunzi is in another way, but remember, Xunzi is still a Confucian scholar. He said human nature is bad. Okay, so since human nature is bad, what you need to do? Education then. Okay, you should provide education. So the human will grow good and the whole state will become good. And the legalism, that's later time, they will say, forget about education, just do reward and the punishment. That's another way to develop. Zhuangzi during the same time, he is different than human nature, good or bad. Here, Zhuangzi's concept is no distinction. As long as you start to think about good or bad, then you cause the problem because you say, okay, human nature is good, then why you have some bad people, right? So the idea is you don't think about good or bad. Okay, let it go. It's nature. Birds fly high, mouse will dig, going deep in the earth. Yeah, let them go. They want to do. That would be fine because that's their nature and they know what to do. So no distinction would be the more important for the Taoism thinking, especially during Zhuangzi's time. So any other comment or anything you want to discuss? Otherwise, we will go to the next one. Clint, please.
Yes, a follow-up thought on this whole discussion. I actually, by the way, great discussion. I think we're raising the very good points there. So will it be fair to say that Taoism it favors individualism more than Confucianism? That's one point. And then the other one is, how would Taoism, for example, deal with tasks in a society that requires mobilization of resources due to objective reasons? Like, for example, the river, Chinese rivers flood often, and you have to build some very complex infrastructure which requires tons of human resource and so on. So given the fact that Taoism may be more like individualism, let's allow people to decide. But so if you allow each individual to decide what's good for them, they may never really agree to undertake a huge task to build a bridge, for example, or build a dam, and so on. So that's the direction that I was thinking in, and if or somebody could expand on that a little bit, I think that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So I only express my my own view, and that's a very typical question about the Taoism philosophy. First, I do believe Taoism is very individualism. Okay, so they focus on individual compared to Confucianism. So that's my first point of view, because I will go back to the very first chapter, so-called happy excursion. Okay, talk about the birds. He talked about freedom. And then all this freedom has to base on the individual thinking. You, big birds or small birds, you can be free. Okay, I think that's important concept. At least my understanding in this way. Second part is more difficult about, okay, you make a very difficult question on this. The Yellow River flooding, how can we fix it, right? Taoist thinking, in my point of view, could be just let it go. You don't have to fight against the nature, because first, the river flooded because you over agriculture. Okay, that's why it caused the problem. Okay, so you should not have done this from the beginning. But if you done, as soon as you're done this, you do more things to prevent it, then it may cause further problem. And which is not all wrong, because in historical, we will see a lot of time, a lot of government. There's one argument. The Chinese have many dynasty, many different government. The government try to fix the Yellow River, usually cause the problem, because you put more people to do the dangerous job, and turn out the more people die, people become poor, got a problem, they have the revolt coming up. If they did it alone, okay, usually, okay, it's better. So that's another, I'm not saying that's the correct argument, but they have a different thought on this. So I just have to roughly answer your question. Okay. And again, that's just my opinion. If you ask wrong, probably people have a different answer, but you are entitled to have your own answer. Yeah, we don't have to agree on.
That's the way I would have answered it. Yeah,
Okay.
you live with the flood. I mean, that is what the river does. So
yeah, thank you, Steve.
be with it.
Yeah, you agree with me, but some people may not agree, but that's fine.
There's a saying in Russian. I have a Russian background. Actually, I'm from Ukraine, and which literally, if you translate this, the matter of saving the drowning is in the hands of the people who drown. It's a brutal saying. It's almost like a joke, and it comes in one of the literally masterpiece by one of the greatest writer, modern Russian writer. But basically, it's just like an answer, like, "Hey, save yourself." It's a little bit bitter, maybe a sarcastic way of, but there's some truth in that. I agree to that. Yeah,
Thank you.
or maybe think ahead. Think ahead. You're a human being, so think ahead. Get out of the way. It's one way to answer this.
Karim, thank you for this Russian saying. Can you type it in the chat so I can save it for me?
Yes, I will. I'll give you the citation also if I can find it.
Okay,
it's a great, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the third one, okay, which is regarding, you will see this step by step move to the concept of Wu Wei. Okay, so number 3, talk about governing the world. Okay, again, that's back to our original question, right? What's the purpose of governing this world? Okay, I say it's peaceful. That's I believe that's the historical background, because that's their concept. So again, I'll start with a strange people's name called Tiangen. Okay, Tiangen is a person, I will assume is a Confucian, and we don't know who he is, and based on his name, is the root of heaven. So was traveling, okay, again, Zhuangzi likes to use the word Yu, which I usually translate as wandering. So travel, you have a purpose. Wandering means you don't have a purpose. Enjoy your journey. So if you were here for the Zhuangzi reading, you probably know I focus on this word a lot, because almost every chapter, every possible, when you go somewhere, Zhuangzi will use this word, you wander. If you go to Confucius Analect, I think Confucius only used twice on this word, and which either neutral or another time used as a negative point of view. So from this single word, you will see Confucian and Taoist have very different thinking about even this word, traveling. Okay, and then Zhuangzi will use Yu, which means wandering without purpose. That's what he means, travel without purpose. So Tiangen Yu, okay, wander to the south of Yin Mountain. just some location, he had reached the river Liao. Okay, Liao Shui. That's just preposition. I'm not going to go deep on the meaning of this word. Okay, so when he met a nameless sage, that's the person we will talk about in chapter, I think in chapter 1 and chapter 6. Zhuangzi always talk about a true sage has no name. So this no name sage eventually show up here. And Zhuangzi call him nameless sage, to whom he has. Okay, so Tiangen still have Confucius thinking, just like people in this group ask the question. I beg to ask about governing the world. So he's asking how to govern in this world. Okay. So the nameless man, the nameless sage's answer is go away. You are a low fellow. How unpleasant is your question? I will be in companionship of the maker of things. Okay. And when wearied, I will mount on the birds of ease and emptiness, proceed beyond the world, wander the land of nowhere. Okay, so all this description is very poetic. Okay, he talking about maker of things, talking about the emptiness, talking about beyond, wander the land of nowhere, talking about in the domain of nothingness. Why do you come worry me with the problem of setting the world in order? Setting this world in order is all their question, okay? Because they all see this world is chaotic. So Tiangen asked this nameless sage about how to set the world in order. So Tiangen is said, basically he's talking about, don't bother me, you ask a wrong question. Just like human nature is good or bad. You start to think about human nature is good or bad. You already put human in distinction. Then you cause, that's the problem start. Same situation. You think about the setting the world in order. That's the problem start. So the Tiangen, this guy keep asking. So the nameless person, the nameless sage, okay, eventually answered. His answer also very poetic, okay. So his answer is makes excursion in pure simplicity. Identify yourself with non-distinction. Follow the nature of things and admit no personal bias. Then the world will be in peace. So you should not have the concept of distinction. If you have the distinction, you are asking the question, how? Okay, what can I do on this? Then you start to cause problem. I think that's his idea. And then, of course, you can criticize, tell me how to do it. Okay, so, but I'm not going to answer this question. And then I just have to say, this paragraph is, if you read it in Chinese, it's very poetic description, and it's a beautiful description. But here, my focus is still in philosophy, not in literature. Steve and the DLJ, please.
Just that, you know, what is ruling for, what is the government for, that the reaction is just if everybody follows the Tao, it just all just happens. You don't need to have this imposing structure to impose order. The natural nature is the order.
Yeah.
My understanding.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. DLJ.
Yeah, the key word there is if, isn't it? Because I was thinking the same thing. There's a school of thought that was it Pyrrhus? Alexander the Great, Macedonia, went east, picked up some of the teachings. Whether this was specifically or something akin to it, brought it back and influenced things like Epicurus. So the Epicurean idea of simplicity and balance and tranquility all sounds like it's coming from here, right?
Yeah.
But the criticism of Epicurus, of course, is that what do you do when the barbarians are at the gate? because not everybody is going to be doing the Tao. That sounds like a dance, doesn't it? Let's do the Tao. All right, that's the problem.
Yeah,
That's why we world
thank you.
peace.
It's always a problem. Yeah, when the barbarian the gate, why not? I just become barbarian, right? So I give up my culture, I become barbarian. That's another way to answer. I'm not saying that's the right answer, but
So you're saying go with the flow, become a barbarian? Yeah, I like it. Right.
yeah, that's right. And then I call barbarian culture, and they call the culture of the society barbarian. So that's fine. So another way to do it. Okay. And I think you really touched the point, right? One thing to look at is that's the way I sometimes I look at when I come to American and try to study Epicurean and the Stoic. So you will easily to see Epicurean is more Taoist and the Stoic more Confucianism, right? So that's another simple way to classify different schools. And then you also respond to Steve about the question about if everybody follow the Tao, everything blah, 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 fine. And the same question we can ask Confucius, right? If everybody is moral, then this will be fine. The sage king become the highest moral person, and his minister also become moral. Everybody, that's a big if, right? Because nobody can guarantee moral. If Joe Biden is the most moral people, assume, and then does the world America will become everybody moral? No. Okay, so that's again same big if for every school most. Number 4, okay, another short story. I think this one should be the highest point of the story because it's talking about Philosopher-King. That's Fung You Lan's translation, but I would prefer translate as enlightened ruler because the Chinese word called Ming Wang. Okay, that's here. He's talking about Wu Wei, talking about the what's the behavior of king need to do. Okay, forget about it's too idealistic, or you put a big if on it. Let's take this one as a lesson. What as if one day you become the president, or you are in charge of one department, what you need to do. So again, here, Yang Ziju, that's another person, okay, who went to ask Lao Tzu. Okay, I think we know who is Lao Tzu, right? Lao Tzu is the Taoist founder, the author of the Tao Te Ching. Say, here is a man, alert and vigorous, clear-sighted, intelligent, and untiring in learning Tao. Could he be accounted as a wise ruler? Okay, so right now he set up a person. He want to learn Tao, just like our discussion before. Everybody want to learn Tao. It will be fine. Okay, so the Lao Tzu's answer is, in comparison with the sages, such a man would be a mere servant or artisan, toiling with their muscle and wearing out their mind. So here he's talking about even you pursue the Taoist moral, it's also the problem. Okay, such a one can be mere servant. He talk about you just tiring yourself. So he give the example is the tiger and the leopard will be hunted, monkey and the dog, because they are useful. They have some virtue. So you cannot be the wise ruler. You put everything in danger because just like a leopard, because the skin is beautiful. Okay, so they were being hunted. If ugly, or people won't care. So Yang Ziji keep ask the question, right? What's about the government of the wise ruler? So here he believes Fung You Lan translated as a philosopher-king. In the government of the philosopher-king, actually the Chinese word is Ming Wang again. I call it enlightened ruler. Lao Tzu said his achievement is the greatest in the world, but it seems not to be his own. Okay, so he has achievement, but people doesn't know that's his achievement. I think that's the very subtle idea he's talking about. His influence reach all things, but no one depend on him. All right? No one can give him a name, but everyone enjoy oneself. The philosopher-king is he who stands within mystery and makes excursion into non-existence. So we talk about the great philosopher-king. People doesn't know he's the king, okay? But people depend on him, but doesn't know they depend on him. Just like air, we breathe air, we cannot live without air, but we don't know here's the air. Until there's no air, then you start feeling. So that's Taoism, the highest point about management or being a ruler. I like to give an example, my personal example. I kind of feel this way because I'm in the IT support long time ago in the company. So I do see working as an IT support in the company, the highest goal is the people can start to complain like this IT guy has done nothing. Okay, it's totally unnecessary. Why do I need IT guys? You know, everything just work as it is. The computer work when I turn on, connect to internet. You know, nothing wrong. Why do I need this team as an IT support? Right. So I think that's the idea as a ruler. You can compare another situation. The people say, oh, our IT guy is wonderful. Whenever we have a problem, we call, they come and they fix in 5 minutes. And then in the midnight, when I do something, have a problem, I call, they come and they fix my problem immediately. So I think that's the two different ideas. So I think the Taoist idea is the former, right? People say, oh, why do I need IT guys? Because they do nothing. Because they depend on that, but they don't know that. So that's what I learned from this chapter. And I think that's compared to the real world also had a similar situation. So before I go to the next story, we finished the 4 short story, and next one is a little bit longer. So before that, question, DLJ, please.
Yeah, I'm also from the service industry, IT. So, and I teach it now, of course. So I give that very example about the hero culture, where you get all the accolades for turning up and fixing things. But actually, it's better if you're invisible. You're actually doing a better job because you're proactive and nothing's going wrong. Which, of course, is useless when it comes to renewing your budget, because they all think,
no problem.
Yeah, what do we need them for?
Right? Proactively create some problem and then fix immediately. So
Exactly right. So I think the best philosopher kings are a little bit more visible. I mean, I'm trying to think of real life examples, right? The obvious one I think is Lee Kuan Yew, right? He's considered a bit of a philosopher king, although he did have his detractors.
yeah, that's the big problem. Yeah, you are right. I also have the same problem, you know, because
But I mean, but he wasn't invisible, though, was he?
Yeah, then you have to make sure your boss is also philosopher king. Otherwise, you know.
Yeah.
Fred, please.
That last line, the philosopher king stands within mystery and makes excursion into the non-existent, sounds a lot like Buddhism's death of the ego. In Buddhism, however, it's you learn that the ego is an illusion through meditation practice. And I wonder how the philosopher king, exactly how does he make an excursion into the non-existent?
That's a big question, you know, we don't know. But okay, let's put it this way, since you mentioned about Buddhism. Buddhism and Taoism, a lot of people see they are similar, same, because the language are the same. And then some people said Lao Tzu, the Taoist sage, traveled to West, right? So he went to India, actually, all the way through India and become the Buddha. Okay, so that's the Buddhism. Okay, of course, one way to say that's why their thinking are very similar. But actually, I do, since I have a deep reading, I do see they are significant different here. Excursion into non-existence. Okay. Both Buddhism and Taoism talking about non-existence, but Buddhism's non-existence is the existential situation. That means this world is non-existent. All the thing is illusion. The original has nothing. Okay. And the Taoism thinking, Taoism doesn't reject the existence of the real world, but he wants you to create, or mentally or physically, a non-existent world. That's Taoism's thinking. So the Chinese word, one word called xu, which has been used in Taoism, we translate it as emptiness. Buddhism use another word, Chinese word called kong. We also translate as emptiness. But these two Chinese words has a different connotation. First, the Taoism emptiness is a verb, means making it empty. Okay. And the Buddhism emptiness is talking about it is empty already, originally. So that's the subtle difference, and only can tell by Chinese words, so-called xu, which is Taoism, and the Chinese word called kong, which is Buddhism. So I think the whole year I didn't introduce Buddhism, and that's probably wrong. I probably should put the Buddhism schedule next year. Karim, please.
Yes, as far as Buddhism, something that comes to mind is this concept of the dependent origination, from which I believe this whole other concept of emptiness comes from. So it's an emptiness as far as it's rooted in the idea of the dependent origination. It's not just nothingness per se. But as far as Taoism, and on this paragraph, this last paragraph, will I be oversimplifying by saying that Taoism, when they talk about the non-existent and kind of being kind of low gear, low key type of personality, you know, like an invisible IT guy somewhere in the background, is it an oversimplification to say that, hey, it's really practical. It's not about some lofty idea or some concept. It's not about concept. It's just really like, hey, save your energy. You'll feel better. You'll sleep better. It's like an advice for a good life, and don't overthink. Like, don't overthink it. And you try, be a common sense, and maintain some balance, and you'll feel better overall. To me, it just strikes it as such a common sense idea, posturing something that, hey, don't, yes, there are all these great concepts, we can go into all that, but what's the value? Where's the value to you, right? So yes, you let's say you're tasked with being a leader, or somehow it just falls into your lap to step into a certain role. And so the Taoism advice to me is like, okay, don't overdo it. Just do the minimum and then go home. So I may be oversimplifying it, but I'd like to hear your ideas and your comments on this.
I don't see it's oversimplified. I think that's the way I behave, right? So I'm not saying I'm minimalist, and sometimes I see a lot of damage by overdoing. Okay, so that's why, and I don't see it's oversimplified. Somebody may say, "Oh, Clem and Jason are oversimplified." I don't know, but at least oversimplified could be another virtue. So, Fred, please.
That was a really good distinction, Jason, between Buddhism and Taoism with respect to non-existence. Someone had asked in the chat if you could repeat the comparison, And that would be good if you could repeat it again. The sense I get then is that in Buddhism, you go through usually a long process of meditation that allows you to penetrate the Maya or illusion of the world and get at the what do they call it, the heart of the lotus, which is the realization of the non-existence of the self. So you're penetrating to the nature of reality, whereas with Taoism, it seems to be more practical, as Clem had suggested. It's a practical guide which says that effectively that in the confusion and jumble of the world, the sage will carve out for himself a realm of non-existence and contemplate the mystery thereby, without necessarily stipulating that this is the way the material world really is, i.e. that it is not. So anyway, somebody had asked if you could clarify, if you could repeat that comparison, or maybe rephrase it.
Yeah, I think you did a good job on that. And use my words let's make it simple. Okay, Buddhism, okay, is both talking about emptiness, but Buddhism talking about emptiness in Chinese word called Kong. Okay, if you reread all the Taoism texts in Chinese or Zhuangzi in Chinese, the word Kong doesn't appear many times. I remember I would make the word count in Dao De Jing. I think only talk about once. Okay, only talk about once about Kong, this word. Okay, but if you translate to English, okay, translate Kong of emptiness. But there's another word used many times called Xu, okay, which also translated as emptiness. So the two concepts is a big difference in point of the Xu, which is the Taoism concept of emptiness, means you have to remove things, okay, get away the existing things to making things empty. Okay, you see the cup here, but you try to make it empty, not there. He talked about the empty here, okay, so has its function on there. That's Taoism thinking. Buddhism thinking about empty is talking about the existential condition. The existing, this world is never have seen. You see this cup, it's not there. It's just illusion. That's Buddhism thinking. But both translate as emptiness. Okay, but they have a different connotation. So we can talk about this in detail, and if you are interested, we can make another section talking about this. I think that's very important concept. Clint, please.
Yes, just to kind of circle back and maybe dive into that whole topic of non-existence and practicality a little bit more. I still, maybe it's just like a Platonist in me that that thinks that, well, there has to be something more than just the practical side of things. So, and there's also like there's almost like a fear of falling into this the modern hippie culture trend where you basically dismiss of the mystery of it, right? And basically go into, hey, it's don't sweat it, kind of don't sweat attitude, right? So is Taoism more serious than just saying hey, first, be practical, be common sense? Is there something more to it? I guess is there like a mystery component in it?
I probably don't have an answer on that, because you probably already know the answer, and everyone probably have its own answer. So what's the proper way? We don't know. And the Taoism also keep, if you read the chapter 6, it does keep a lot of mysticism concept, the flavor of mysticism here. Okay, so that really depends on how do you read, right? So personally, for me, I don't read. I really don't see there's more serious part on that. There's no really mysticism in Taoism. That's my view. But of course, there's many people who read Taoism, especially chapter 6 and a lot of in Zhuangzi's writing. They put a lot of focus on mysticism. Okay, so a lot of words. I think, well, I don't know. We have time to talk about this story or not. A lot of things they will go to in detail. Okay, what does, for example, what's the meaning of Yang-zi? Okay, the people's name, and they have their meaning on that. And when Zhuangzi talk about practice, okay, you breathe from your ear, not from your nostril. Okay, they take serious on this concept. So you go to another totally different way than what I'm reading. They go to the religious, and that's why they have the religious Taoism, which you will see totally different than the way I read this one. And then, but they are reading the same text. So I will stop here about the mysticism because I don't want to be too biased on different way of reading. So I think we will. So let me do this. Okay, next story is talk about diets. Okay, I'm going to skip this long story, which I think is a very wonderful story. But let me finish the whole book, and probably next time, if we have time, I will add the diets story, put in there. Or if we finish early, I can put this one story in a brief way. So that's another story. I think the story is a very good story. I like the story a lot. Okay, I almost want to make this story as one whole section. Okay, talking about this diets story. It talk about fortune telling. Okay, how do you treat it? I think it's very important, but I don't see this story fit into this chapter because I think it's unrelated. But you know, since Zhuangzi put here, then I have to put here. So let me skip this one first, and I go to the number 6. Number 6 is not a story. Okay, it's talk about, it's a kind of it's a motto or call it a maxim. Okay, basic. That's the I see this chapter as something I should memorize by heart. Okay, this one is a good summary about Lao Tzu's Dao De Jing. So I'm going to read here, okay? And if you read in Chinese, it's very poetic and 无为名师, 无为谋府, 无为士任, 无为知足. All start with 无, which is non-action or 无为, okay? Okay, so that's the key concept. If you read Dao De Jing, okay, 无为 is the key concept. And then here, Zhuangzi eventually connect his philosophy with Lao Tzu's Dao De Jing, talk about 无为. So here he kind of summarized his political view, which is similar to Lao Tzu's political view. And in a short paragraph, kind of summarize what's Lao Tzu's point. And with 4 different stories to support this idea. So I'm going to read this one. Do not be the owner of fame. Do not be full of plan. Do not be busy with work. Do not be the master of knowledge. I think this 4 saying is very important, and I think that serve a good reminder for my daily life, right? Do not be the owner of fame. You may achieve fame, but remember, don't be the owner of the fame. Okay, that's just a name. Okay, do not be full of plan. Okay, do not be busy with work. Do not be the master of knowledge. Okay, you learn, but try not be the master of knowledge, because that's just knowledge, endless knowledge. If you remember chapter 3, okay, the beginning was talking about the knowledge is endless, but your life, knowledge is limited. Your life is limited. So why you use your limited life to pursue the limitless knowledge? So that's Zhuang's question to you, and which is Confucius will totally disagree. Confucius say, ego to learn, 好学. You need to pursue the knowledge, learning all the way through to the last moment. So that would be very different. Fred, please.
Functionally, do not be the owner of fame might potentially be recast as do not let fame own you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So second, talking about DLJ, please.
Yeah, I can go with this. I've been living my life this way for most of it. Except one bit, which seems like a contradiction. So the mastery of knowledge. And again, you could say, don't let knowledge master you. So Fred's got a point there. But the mind is the body's navigation system. So responding to things requires knowledge. Knowledge is what? Actionable information, right? So you need to have accumulate knowledge in order to be able to navigate through the world more effectively, right? Fine, you don't have to retain it. You can, well, even that, I'm not sure. You need a body of knowledge. So that's the bit I'm not happy with. If it was worded differently as don't pursue knowledge for its own sake, ignoring everything else, fine. But there's something a little bit off with that, but I think it doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I will say that's a little bit, you see, okay, just like Fred talking about, do not be the owner of fame. You should read as do not let the fame be the owner of you. Do not let knowledge be the owner of the master of you. I think in this way will probably read more meaningful. But if you look at the Chinese, it's become very hard to translate. Here is say 无为名师. Okay, that's the difficult part. Don't 无为 means no action. Don't actively become 名师. 师 means a dead body. So you become part of name. Okay. 无为谋福. Okay. Don't actively plan too much. 无为是任. Something is not your responsibility. Don't do it. 无为之主. Okay. Don't think you are mastering the knowledge. So that would be another way to read it. That's in Chinese. And then lots of Fung You Lan translation. I think it's already very good, but I really thank everyone to bring up the ambiguity this part, and then it does have some ambiguity here, but that's the way it is. Okay, second part, identify yourself with infinity, makes excursion into the void, which is same as non-existence. Exercise fully what you have received from nature, but gain nothing besides. In one word, be empty. So here, empty, we translate as empty, but Chinese word is 虚, okay, not 空. Okay, so that's his topic. Key. Key, you have hands up?
Oh, is it me?
No. Okay, anybody?
Oh, me. Okay. So I relate to this message. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so like I don't know if it's exactly what I'm thinking about it, but I feel like I can relate to it
Okay.
because the mind is just like a cup kind of thing. Anything can enter into it, and once everything that we've learned is a memory, because everything was programmed to us. We didn't come with the language. We didn't come how to eat. Like everything was, was put in our head. That's a cup. The mind is the cup. And whenever you identify with the thing, it becomes you. But whenever you see it for what it is, then you can experience it without you becoming it. So when you don't identify, it can change. Like you can be like, oh, when there's something happening, a different situation, you're able to just move to do differently because you're not identified with the old thing that you were doing. But once you identify, when you're being put, example, people get identified with the place that they're in, right? So when they move to another place, they end up suffering because, oh, this is not the way it is, blah, blah. But if they saw the place that they were in as just the experience, and when they move to another place too, they wouldn't be, oh, I'm in this place and stuff. They would go as a flow. Like the mind will accept everything and it will become like a flow. Wherever you put the mind in, it will just learn to adapt, learn to experience. But whenever identity comes, it kind of it becomes who I am and who I'm going to become. So there's going to be a war between the new identity you're trying to be, the new action that you're trying to take, and the action that you've been taking in because of you became that identity. So now for you to be something new, that the old identity have to die off. But when you're not owning any of your identity, you're just like being a water. Anything can come into the mind, anything can come out of the mind. You just go with life with flow. There's no war between you and yourself. Like, so I
All
don't
right,
know.
yeah, thank you for sharing. All right. Finis, how to pronounce your name? Finis, please. You have the hands up.
Phineas, you're on mute.
You are muted. Okay, so yeah, you are muted. So I see your hands up, but you are muted. Anyway, okay. Krim, please. Go to Krim.
Yes, actually, hearing the Thivan, I hope I pronounced her name correctly. Hearing what she had to say, I think what comes to mind is the idea of circular reference from it's maybe like an IT concept dealing with Excel, I think, yeah, we as humans, we tend to get ourselves into this endless mode of, postulating something, some concept or some idea, and then, getting trapped into that. So I don't know if my understanding is correct of what I heard, but it sort of rings a bell with me that I think Taoism is trying to help us avoid falling into that trap of constantly churning certain things. Like let's say you have a goal, right? And then you start working towards that goal, then you start defining it, then then you have your doubts and so on. And it's I think that's all our life is like we create very often we get stuck into this either analysis or some kind of get attached to a certain idea, and then rather than just enjoying enjoying life as it is, trying even not to notice or not to overthink it. I thought I just added.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I have no comment, but basically I agree with you on this kind of thinking. So
Jason,
I don't know if you noticed in the chat, Phineas says he's unable to unmute, says the host is not allowing him to unmute.
no, actually I actively put him on, I request him to unmute. So because everyone, I have no way to just forbid someone to mute. I don't think I have this. Okay, I'm going to ask him to unmute. So right now I click ask to unmute. So he should have a pop-up box say, go ahead to unmute, right? So
He says thanks, but not sure if it's working or not.
no, look, I
Says he clicked it, but it's glitching. You can see the chat.
yeah, but okay, so I just have to sorry about this, but I promise I didn't do anything special to him. And then
Hey, Phineas, why not type it in the chat and we can read it out for you?
yeah, if you type in the chat, yeah, DOJ happy to read for you. So, okay, so let me finish the last sentence. Okay, the mind of the perfect man. Okay, so that would be, if you read the Confucius, there will be the Zhuangzi. Okay, is like a mirror. So the mind should be like a mirror. It does not move with things, nor does it anticipate them. It responds to things, but it does not retain them. Therefore, he is able to deal successfully with things, but he is not affected by them. So I just read this one, and then you can tell me, well, how do you think, DRJ? You have comment?
Yeah, just I'm going to read out Phineas's. I don't know if you can see the chat there, but he's put Mexican shaman also reference infinity. There's a book called Active Side of Infinity, and he says thank you.
Okay. Book called Active Side of Infinity.
So please now, Jason, tell us everything you know about Mexican shamanism.
I don't know.
Okay, don't take long.
So let me finish doing the last story. This one is short, and I see this one is a little bit weird, but since it's last one for the inner chapter, so we will, after this one we will finish the 7th chapter. So next section, I will post in the meetup page. Please read the introduction, which is about like five pages. Okay, from Fung You Lan's writing. He summarized 10 points of this book, and then with some example. I think that's very good, and we can review on this one, serve as a review. And I still didn't finish the story of Liezi, which I think is important. Then if I have time, I will cover next week Liezi. So right now we go to the last story, the death of the primitivities. This story is a little bit strange, but let me read it. The ruler of the Southern Sea is called Change. Chinese word called Xiu. Okay, this Xiu means change fast. Okay, actually should be means change fast. The ruler of Northern Sea called Uncertainty. So called who also means uncertainty, also very fast change. Okay, so they have the fast, high frequency, this kind of meaning. And then the ruler of the center. So we talk about South Sea, North Sea, and the center. The center is called primitivity. Chinese word called 混沌. It means primary, that's true, but it also means unclear. Okay, so there's 3 rulers: change and uncertainty, which on the north and the south often met on the territory of primitivity on the center, and being always well treated by him, by the primitivity, the ruler of the center, determined to repay his kindness. So they said, all men have 7 holes for seeing, hearing, eating, and breathing. So you have 2 nose holes, you have 1 mouth, you have 2 ears and 2 eyes. So that's 7 holes. Primitivity has none of this. Let us try to bore some for him. So they try to help. So every day they bore 1 hole for him, and at the 7th day, the primitivity died. That's it. So that's how Zhuangzi ended his 7th book. I see this one is a little bit weird, but I think the essence should be talking about don't do unnecessary thing. Okay, don't do unnecessary surgery to people. If you have some defect or some overbijia, you have some problem, don't overkill, don't fix it. I think that's probably the meaning of that. But anyway, I just will end here, and then we have a few minutes left if you want to discuss or you have any opinion. And then next week we will go back to SK's Bhagavad Gita, and technically I finished this 7 chapter, and then next time, I think November 11th, I will please read the introduction. Because I always find out the introduction should read the last, because when you read the introduction, you don't feel anything. So when you through many story and read the introduction, you find out it's a good summary. So so I will please read the introduction. So I think Fung You Lan lists 10 great points about all Zhuangzi's reading. So Madeline, please.
Let's see. Well, I have a slightly more metaphysical interpretation of this one.
On this one, okay, please. I'd like to hear that, because Pim told me he liked this story. So
yeah, I love this one.
Okay, great.
Okay, so basically we have change and uncertainty.
Yes.
And then something in between those two that is primal, it's unclear, it's kind of chaotic.
Yes, that's right.
And so we know that, change and uncertainty can bring a lot of problems for people.
Okay.
Or for any entity with a form. And so they are basically trying to humanize something that is not human. In other words, some large, ineffable, incomprehensible thing. They are trying to make it seem like a human being because they view that as being better. But in fact, they're killing it, although I don't personally think that it could die, but I think for them it died because they tried so hard to define it. And this would sort of go with the previous one about don't get too invested in your own thinking and your own reputation and your own ego. And this would be projecting human attributes outward onto the cosmos.
Thank you very much. Okay, so when you are talking about that, I think that I get more meaning on that. Okay, so Huntun means not clear. So why they want to bore 7 holes for seeing, hearing, eating, and breathing? He want to make him clear. You can see clear, you can hear clear, you can taste something, you can breathe, you can smell something clear. And then probably Zhuangzi is talking about should keep this unclearness. If you make everything distinct, clear, sharp, it will cause the problem. That's another way I will read. So, of course, you are entitled to have your own interpretation, and then, but for the fact is that's the last story of Zhuang's 7 chapter. That I think we have been through this one for at least 6 months, on and off. 7 chapters, that many stories, and that's the end of the story. Clint, please.
Yeah, I thought of my own interpretation also.
Please. Yeah.
Not to obviously negate any other interpretation, but so this is like a meeting place, or the primitivity is a meeting place for others, and to me it almost like is an empty space where others can come in, and so I would say don't clutter the empty space with stuff, like don't drill holes, meaning don't bring anything else into the space where something can happen, right? Because in other words, to be in a space, you have to have it empty. So don't bring anything to it. It's really the same thing as was already mentioned by Madeline, but it's it's another way of expressing it, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for the different interpretation, and it helped me a lot. And anyone have any other interpretation or something related to today's section?
I was thinking that we have more holes than that, but let's not go there, Sean.
I mean, we're more whole. Okay. Yeah, we do. 2 more. So basics, that's 9 whole basics. But we only talk about upper. So any other comment? And then thank you everyone. And I think someone asked about the recording. Let me stop recording here. So anyway, thank you everyone.